Nope. Where'd it go? Uh-oh.
I don't
Always,
like to hear
always.
uh-oh, Dan.
That's right. It's like having your surgeon say, "Oops."
No.
Don't, don't want that to happen. All right, we should be live streaming on YouTube as well as the Facebook group for QB Power Hour or the QB Power User Group, using a new thing here. So, Michelle, you want to kick us off?
Sure. Good morning. Hi, everybody. Welcome to another QB Power Hour. We're very glad to have you joining us today. Our topic today is desktop migration, best practices, and a demo. We've got some great Intuit folks to help with this today. So we're very glad to have everyone with us today.
Oop. Oh my goodness, what happened?
My name is Michelle Long, while Dan's getting back to the slides. CPA with an MBA in entrepreneurship, owner of Long for Success, author of 5 books. Check them out on Amazon. There's the links to our Facebook group. It is very active. We encourage you guys to continue the conversation out there afterwards. So
And we
that's
and
enough
we
about
just
me.
crossed over. We just crossed over 13,000 members in the
Yay!
Facebook group, which is pretty phenomenal.
And they are very active too. So I think it's
They
awesome.
are, including Blaze, who is joining us here today.
Yes.
So
Thank you, Blaze.
appreciate that. A little introduction about me. Dan DeLong, owner of Dan worked at Intuit with some of the people on the panel here today for nearly 18 years. Co-hosting today as well as Workshop Wednesday, which oddly enough is on Wednesdays over at schoolbookkeeping.com, and doing some tech editing for the QBO for Dummies series and last year's top 10 pro advisor for social media. So we've got an expert panel. So we'll just go around the horn if you want to unmute yourself if you want, but at least for Leah and Blaze, who are going to be presenting a few things today. Go ahead, and I actually used to sit 2 seats down from Leah when I was at Intuit. So Leah, pass it
Yeah,
over to you.
thanks. It's good to see you, Dan. Hopefully all is well. I'm Leah Hartman. I am a principal professional services consultant under the partner sales channel team here at Intuit. Been with the company for over 10 years now. I used to work in support with Dan, and now I'm in sales. So excited to talk to you guys today about migration.
Blaze?
Hey, so I'm Blaze, the payroll compliance engagement and critical response leader here at QuickBooks. You'll see me post a lot in the channel about payroll updates, what's happening, what's new in both the compliance as well as just the product in general. So hopefully this will be a fun discussion. As far as desktop migration goes, very near and dear to my heart. I was actually in charge of this project some 6 years back. So a lot of the improvements to the payroll space, I actually had kicked those all off. And then I pass it off on to Sumit and Somya, who are also here, and they're actually on the line from India, but they are now currently in charge of the process, and they'll be here later on the day to answer all the questions you have.
Yeah, so as you have questions, go ahead and put those in the Q&A portion. Sumit and Somya and Jacinth will be answering those questions. I'm really amazed that Jason joined us here today, because he's been here longer than I have.
Yes.
he's in the sample company. I mean, that's
and he is the founder and creator of Control Y in the desktop. And all accountants love our journal entries, so we love Control Y. So thank you, Jason, for that and joining us today, as well as the others.
All right, so a few details about the QB Power Hour. Obviously, it's every other Tuesday, not Wednesday. I'm confusing my webinars. Tuesday at 12 Eastern. Unfortunately, not eligible for CPE, but we'll be talking next upcoming. We'll be having a deep dive with Ignition, some of the powerful tools that they can do, and we're looking to do something maybe live at Scaling New Heights. So stay tuned for that when Michelle and I will be there in person. So it'll be weird to do something together, but also nice to be doing something together. And then Bookkeep will be joining us in July, talking about managing multiple payment methods with them. And of course, we have the resources page, which is qbpowerhour.com/resources for all the PDFs of all the slides, not just what we're talking about here today, the recordings, the podcasts, and as well as other resources there as well. On our homepage, you can see upcoming webinars as well as other like coffee and donuts, things that our friends at Intuit are doing. You can just register from there, right from the homepage of QB Power Hour as well. Again, a little housekeeping. If you have specific questions about what it is that we're talking about here today, please put them into the Q&A section. That will allow us to respond directly to you if need be, or if it's something that we kind of need to take offline, they'll be able to follow up with you post the webinar as well. If you're watching on YouTube or the Facebook group, of course, you can just put in something in the chat there. In theory, I'm supposed to be able to see it, but because I'm doing a lot of different things at the same time, I can't really see it right now. But as I pass the ball over to Leah and Blaze to talk about some of those things, I should be able to see and respond to the comments as well. Of course, have the handouts available for download on the landing page itself. So our agenda today, we're going to be talking, about what is the right fit for QuickBooks Online migration. When we talk about migration, we're really just talking about somebody who's currently in desktop and might want to consider moving that desktop data into QuickBooks Online or migrating the data. We'll talk about payroll migration, which Blaze is super in depth with that and really wants to make sure that things come over properly. And we'll talk about what happens, what do you do when maybe it doesn't. We'll do a demonstration in between those two things, and then we'll of course take Q&A as well. But first, start off with a poll. There it is over here. Okay, so we're gonna talk about prior migration experiences that exceeded your expectation. Leah, you do a lot of conversions, right? Or migration.
I actually work on the team that does a lot of migrations and conversions. Yeah, for sure. I used to do them back in the day.
Right. Back in the day. And you or your team, when you do a desktop migration, what would you say, data wise, things that happen just usually it's nice and smooth in the process. What would you say, would be a good, ratio of, things that just went super smooth? Because I remember when I was in support and I walked somebody through, the migration process, it would be like, that's it. That was easy,
Yeah. Yeah, step-by-step process is pretty straightforward when it comes to moving data from desktop to online. And, we've improved the process, of course, over the years. I think where we fall a little short is sometimes data's corrupted, sometimes the file's too big, or there are specific add-ons like maybe payroll or inventory that might make it a little more complex. So I would say about 80% of conversions are usually fairly smoothly. But if you've got like 10 clients that have payroll and the conversions just, were a bit of a struggle, I can see how that would be like, oh my gosh, this is never going to work.
Yeah, take a look at share the results of the poll here. It keeps bouncing back and forth between my monitors. So yeah, it looks like about 19% said everything went perfect. 46% saying better than I thought, or that we got a few train wrecks. And so we have a few of those, and we'll talk about some of the things to maybe look at when you're doing these types of migrations.
Dan, I think that's an important point. Is we're going to be talking about some of the really nitty gritty here, but like Leah said, I totally agree with her. 80% of the time, you're not going to have any problems. So we're going to be talking about some things that happens occasionally. But if you're just getting started converting from desktop to online with your clients, start with the easier clients that don't have payroll and inventory, and that's going to help tremendously. So Dan, go ahead.
All right. So let's, Lee and I, we'll just have a little discussion about, which clients are a right fit for QuickBooks Online. Do you have that kind of discussion in the team that you work with when you're talking to you primarily that was primarily and typically at the same time? Do you primarily work with directly with accountants or end users switching or migrating to QuickBooks Online in your team?
Yeah, so for my team, we work mostly with the partner channel. So the partner channel includes accountants, whether they're a part of the large firms or mid-sized firms, right? Where you guys have account managers. And then we also support the QSP side / resellers, ISVs and things like that. So I do cater mostly towards our partners and I work with them mostly, but I do sometimes have to work with their customers and their clients. And, we do that as well. It just depends on who needs help.
And then do you have these conversations beforehand? Like we would review with the client the features and the workflows that are mission critical to them before saying, yeah, just go ahead and upgrade to or update to QuickBooks Online?
Absolutely. I think it's hugely important to understand the differences between what desktop has to offer versus what QBO has to offer. And, of course, the main question is, are you going to see the value in QuickBooks Online by moving from a desktop product to the online product? And so having those types of conversations of, do you see the value? Does the customer see the value? Do they want to continue moving their books, right? Being in the cloud, being successful for the future and being more proactive rather than, reactive, which I guess people could argue we're kind of in a reactive state as it is now, but we absolutely have those conversations. I think for me, it's not so much like a specific industry that you're gonna find a good fit for QuickBooks Online. I think there are going to be situations where anybody could move, and it's really just about the data, what the customer needs or the client needs to get them to go to QBO or not.
Yeah, that was always one of my you could never have just like a black and white answer, when it came to, is this a right fit for moving to online? Because one person's job costing could be completely different than another. I mean, it's like, going to garage sales looking for treasures. Sometimes it's really just relative. Some people may not need, the full-fledged usage of what job costing can do inside a desktop, and really understanding what actually happened. And you guys have created this article here. I've linked to it in the slides itself. I wonder if I'll be able to click it. I can, yes. Because this is something that is really valuable in understanding, well, what's going to happen, to the data. And this article here is, it breaks it down what moves to QuickBooks Online, what doesn't move, and what to expect. So this is a great resource for those that are considering moving to QuickBooks Online to really understand, like if they have multi-currency, and in the past, multi-currency was a deal breaker, right? It's like just you couldn't do it. Now it's transactions with 3 different currency types won't copy into QuickBooks Online. I mean, how frequently does that happen? And if you do have that, then now okay, well, I'm going to have to recreate these types of transactions to really get the data in there, or come up with another alternative. Payroll, which we'll talk to Blaze a little bit about, how payroll moves over, what it is to do if it doesn't come over. The theory or the idea is that it would come over. Doesn't mean that it always does. Again, based on how things are currently set up in the file, price levels don't come over. So is that something that they're using inside of their desktop file? So this resource is really pretty powerful. So it's good to have that understanding of what will and what won't come over and how it comes over, and that article is available to do so. So let's talk a little bit about what we might consider to be a showstopper. Something that would be available for, or that they're using inside a desktop that just really doesn't translate too well. So payroll by job / class. What would you? I'll throw that over to Blaze since he's the payroll migration expert. So what would you say? What is that? When you're really trying to decipher what that actually is.
Sure. So between the two of them, this matter of it really gets down to how level of details, how much level of granularity you actually need to be able to do job costing. So for tracking it at the individual project level, so on a particular work that he's done, that a person sets X number of hours painting the fence, X number of hours of washing the house, X number of hours of paving. We don't have it in payroll set up at that level. Right now, the job class is only set up at the employee level. So a particular employee for that given payroll run would have one set class. We are working on expanding this, but that's where we're currently set.
Got it. So like the different hours and different times, you can't necessarily do that even if you're using something like the timesheets in QBO payroll.
So if you're using the timesheets in the QBO payroll, you can divide it by the hours of worked for that area, but those classes in QuickBooks Time do not carry over currently into the payroll and throughout the rest of the ecosystem. So we're working on it. It's coming. It's not quite there yet.
But it's an important distinction to make. Like maybe I can do what I need to do with time, not necessarily flowing directly into payroll to get to the profitability. That's part of those discussions to have. Another thing is custom roles. So if they're using, especially if they're using Enterprise, QuickBooks Enterprise allows you to be very granular in the. I always compared it to a light switch, right? Like QuickBooks Online is on or off. Sometimes you give them full access or no access, and somewhere in between is maybe another light, right? So, but Enterprise is more of a dimmer switch. You can get really granular in the lighting. You can add different colors, you can different effects and those types of things inside of the roles. And QBO Advanced is that's one of the development opportunities for QuickBooks Online Advanced. Was always positioned as a use more flexibility with users and roles, and that's I assume that's coming, but of course you can't say yes, no. It's one of those things that is certainly on the horizon to be on level. Price levels, as we mentioned, they don't convert, but there are price rules. So it's important to understand what it is that price rules will do inside of QuickBooks Online, and maybe they will be sufficient for the price, to replace price levels, and then we'll take some work to create those. Sales orders is something that is just not in QBO yet, but a lot of people will use estimates in place of sales orders. But again, the caveat of what a sales order does inside of Premier and Enterprise doesn't really flow over at all, right? The open sales orders wouldn't even come over, to QuickBooks Online if they are using them. And then, of course, we're talking about the Enterprise of the advanced inventory and the reporting. You would need to use, an add-on, if you are using that functionality. Inventory, when it comes specifically into QuickBooks Online, is I buy stuff and I sell stuff. I don't do anything to that stuff in between the buying and the selling of that merchandise when it comes to inventory tracking inside of QBO. And some other functions of letters and memorized reports don't necessarily, come over. And a couple of months ago, we had In Young come from Intuit, and we did a desktop feedback session. So I did provide a link there for the session, as well as the survey results that we did during that feedback session of some of the desktop functionality that just doesn't pair into QuickBooks Online. But again, reaching back to that prior article about what does and what doesn't come over, and understanding how it comes over is really what we're focusing on here today. So some migration best practices. So this is kind of like, stretching before your workout, right? So before you do some conversions, you want to make sure that you have your feature comparison. You want to have good data to move to QuickBooks Online. So verifying the data in desktop and correcting some of that. Michelle, we were talking yesterday, and there are there's some resources in the advanced certification, right, with regards to correcting some of these tricky situations in desktop.
Yes, there are some in the module 9 of the advanced training. So the QuickBooks product training, the advanced level. In module 9, it's on complex conversions. And it does cover, some of the things that you want to do in desktop prior to converting, such as, rebuilding the data file, verifying the data, or creating a backup
Portable
file, portable copy, all these things that you should do prior to converting. It doesn't go as in depth on some of that as you could. So Dan, you're working on a session for Scaling New Heights on data file or data utility tools and everything. And Dan and I talked about doing that, coming up as a future QB Power Hour. But in the meantime, that VCon is going on right now with the advanced training. You can get the supplemental guides, the handouts in the resources. So if you go to qbtrainingevents.com, and I'll drop it in the chat again, if you go over to the qbtrainingevents.com, go into resources, and you'll be able to go in there and you can, for the VCon, you can download that module for module 9, complex conversions. That'll have a lot of useful info for you in there.
Awesome. And then some other best practices are try it before you leap into updating into QBO, hitting the ground running. Set up a trial run to see what you're in for. The file should be local, right? Meaning that it's on the local C or local D drive. I always compared that to trying to get an elephant to cross a tightrope. Like if your file is on a file server somewhere and you're asking it to do something across your network and upload it to online, it's possible, but it's probably not going to be it's going to be messy. So always have the file local to your local C or D drive. Logged in as the admin user. Only the admin can actually do this conversion inside of the desktop, or maybe the accountant user as well. I may be overstepping there, but it's always a good idea to be in as the admin anyway. Of course, you're being in single user mode on all of this stuff as well. But set up a 30-day trial of QBO. You can set the trial as advanced. That way you're choosing the version that's the highest feature set. So you're making sure that whatever does convert comes over to QuickBooks Online Advanced, and you're taking advantage of some of those features that you might be, like custom fields, for example. Sometimes they come over, sometimes they don't. But if you don't have, if you're not using advanced, they won't come over the way that you might have expected them to come over. And then you can always downgrade the version if you're not even using those features. Run it in QuickBooks Desktop and online concurrently, right? Like use that 30-day trial, to run it concurrently. It's going to help with the navigation learning curve, and that sort of thing. So Leah, so let's talk about some of the clients that you should migrate to QuickBooks Online. So let's talk a little bit about that.
Definitely. So one of the biggest things that we like to kind of talk about when it comes to moving from a desktop product to cloud is what are the advantages of working in a cloud, right? And I'm sure you guys probably know the talk tracks, anytime, anywhere access, right? We have bank level encryption security. So we take that on when we're working in a subscription-based product in the cloud. We take care of that firewall piece for you guys. Automatic data backup. Of course, we all know QuickBooks Online Advanced does come with a file backup and restore feature, but the other versions, right, once you hit that save button, it's there to stay. And there's no need to upgrade or do like patches installs, right? You always are going to get the latest version when working in the online product. And then, of course, upgrading and downgrading versions, of course, you can do it anytime. So just a little bit of a difference there compared to working in desktop. And we provide the support in addition, right? It's included in that monthly fee or that annual, however, right? If you're paying it, the client's paying it. whatever. So it's those are the advantages of working in QuickBooks Online. And so as you guys can see, we're not talking about specific industries like, oh, only manufacturers and distributors can go to QBO or only construction workers. Literally, if anybody wants to move to QuickBooks Online, they can. We don't necessarily go into the niches or the industry specifics, and we'll talk a little bit about the ecosystem itself and why we've kind of built it out this way. I think really where the questions come from is what is the current business's workflows? What are they currently doing now in QuickBooks Desktop that needs to either be replicated in online or they can't miss it, like a must have? And then what are the workflows that could be potentially worked on to enhance, modify, and improve? And really, that's kind of where those conversations are going to come into play when moving to the online. So when I say they have to feel the value and see the value of online, I really do mean like they need to be able to see these advantages of QBO and say, you know what, I find this valuable for my business. And you have to believe it yourself as well. So anybody could move, right? We talked a little bit about the differences in desktop products versus complex conversions versus basic conversions, right? We can work through our list of clients that we have and say, hey, these are probably going to be low-hanging fruit clients that would be really good fits for QuickBooks Online. They're not using inventory and they're not using payroll. Those are just the main examples I always like to call out, because that does require a little bit of setup, right? Like we know that if I'm going to move a payroll service, right, I'm going to have to do a little bit of setup. So that's going to take some time. And so questions that I would ask would be like, how many users are you anticipating to have logged in directly to the file, right? Because with QuickBooks Online, the version of QBO you have will dictate what level you need. If you need more than 3 users, we know right off the bat, you're going to have to start off with QuickBooks Online Plus or higher, right? So it's not going to be necessarily about the business structure itself. It's going to be more around the technology and the functionality that the business needs. I hope that made sense.
Yeah, there's no, and as we're seeing, there's no straight, clear cut, definitive yes or no. It's really find out more about it, and then just understanding, well, where is the data going to lie? Because if you're, as we're talking about the ecosystem, this is kind of, and I remember, seeing this in my mind, very vividly, when I worked there, is that, okay, QuickBooks is kind of like your phone, right? You get a phone, whether you're Android or Apple, it doesn't matter. We're not going to start that argument, but you get a phone, right? And you can go and then get apps, to enhance that phone's experience. And that really in my mind this is what QuickBooks Online is. It's like the phone, and then you have, specific apps that you can then enhance that. And that's tends to be where those things are, those tasks are actually handled, which then gets people out of your QuickBooks, right? So maybe you don't want to have people in your payroll, so you want to have payroll outside of QuickBooks. Maybe you don't want to have people in running reports or doing sales tax. So you want to speak to that, Leah?
Yeah, absolutely. You actually took my my
Oh, sorry.
No. It just goes to show that we all are on the same talk track. Like Dan and I used to work together, as we've mentioned before, but when I'm talking, and obviously I'm on the sales side, so most of the time I'm still working with accountants that are trying to understand or trying to get around objections when it comes to QuickBooks Online, right? And so I may come at this maybe a little more on the guys, this isn't a new concept, right? We all deal with apps. If I were to access Dan's phone, I wouldn't know how to open it. I wouldn't know how to access his apps because it's designed for him. And we've done this on purpose in the cloud ecosystem. This is designed this way. And so why not give QuickBooks Online, basically make it the core of the ecosystem. We'll start off with that's the core. That's where you're going to have all of your source and your data. But then allowing the ecosystem / apps to build out the structure that the business needs. And this is why we say there is no definition of who's a good fit or not. If we're talking about construction or manufacturing, there is no restrictions in that regard, because we have hundreds of apps that could solve for potentially anything. Now, there are some that are going to be not good fits, and those are going to be one-off case scenarios, and that's conversations to have with folks like us here at Intuit to confirm. But for the most part, I'd say a large majority of folks can move to QuickBooks Online, and I think it's just having that idea and that understanding of how our ecosystem works. So we have QuickBooks Online as the core. If we look at that middle circle, we have Intuit branded add-ons. So usually what that means is you can log directly into QuickBooks Online, access the branded add-ons directly through QBO. So there's no need to log into a separate website. There's no need to access like a different tab or anything like that. It's all in there. And that's going to unlock additional features, right? So your QuickBooks Payments is going to help automate and make your income, right, more efficient, or your AR. You've got your payroll that's going to help automate and make payroll more efficient, right? Getting those W-2s, paying people on time, paying and filing taxes on time. You've got the time tracking piece, QuickBooks Time, that allows for service technicians and anybody who's actually, you know, being paid through QBO payroll to be able to clock in, clock out, right? And there's lots of cool features around those that maybe be out in the field, and, you know, they're only allowed to be in certain areas, right? Geofencing and stuff like that. Lots of cool things. You guys probably already know, right? We did purchase MailChimp. So we have acquired MailChimp. And so we're building out an application that integrates with QuickBooks Online. How do we help with the marketing piece for small businesses, right? How can we provide them with additional insights and data on how they can help market their business, right? To be more successful. And then of course, you know, other things like QuickBooks Capital, where we can front money for small businesses that might need it, right? Maybe they need that $1,000 to pay their employees, but they haven't gotten the money from that invoice just yet. Lots of really cool Intuit branded stuff. And that's just kind of scratching the surface. Those are the big ones, right? Those are just the main ones. But then we use the rest of the ecosystem, that outer ring. Those are third-party apps that are developed integration. They went to our developer website and they developed that integration with QuickBooks Online. Some of them are two-way sync. Some of them just push data into QuickBooks Online. It really depends on the functionality or the workflow that needs to be, completed, automated, efficient, right, to make it more profitable. We are trying to avoid manual data entry, and that's pretty much it, right? And I always like to say, I know I'm going to make a mistake. If I were to try to enter in checks myself manually in QBO, I guarantee I'm going to fat finger something eventually. So why not let the power of the automation do that job? And so then we're just there to make sure we verify and make sure those tasks get completed. And so third-party applications, not everybody needs the same things. And so this is where that power of that ecosystem comes into play, right? If I am, a clothing store, I might need an inventory management system, or I may need a point of sale system so that I can sell my clothing online. But if somebody is, in a dentist's office, they don't need an inventory management system. So this allows for folks to kind of branch out and automate the pieces or add additional workflow functionality to their niche, their industry, without having to have all these things. Right? With QuickBooks Desktop, there's all these things. And most of the time, and there's maybe like 20-30% of QuickBooks Desktop that's being used per company file. Not everybody's using all the things. And so we're allowing for folks to customize their ecosystem for their business. I could talk about apps for days, but that's my spiel.
Yeah, and I think the biggest challenge, I think, especially for bookkeepers and accountants, is this outer ring has a lot of yeah buts, right? Like to your point, you mentioned, some of the apps may be two-way synchronization and some may be one way, and then how do you manage that data? Is it a right fit for the client? So it ends up being a chasm of, well, how do I find the right one? And a lot of them will offer a try before you buy, right? We can set up a trial to see what that synchronization is like, or that integration is like, before you're spending 3 months in and realize, oh, there's a feature that I really needed. All right, so talk a little bit about the data migration enhancements. We talked a little bit about some of these things, but you guys could actually do it for them, right?
Yes, actually. And so this is the other half of my team that will be a part of what we call the Migration Factory. And so really what we're here to do is we're here to help you and move that data and kind of show you like, hey, this is the process and we're happy to help. Ultimately, what we really want you to do is call that number, that 800 number, and talk to a salesperson who knows about our migration factory process and to see if you're eligible and qualify. And so this is just kind of some highlights as far as like how this works. You know, once you get into the process, there's about a 48, excuse me, to 72 hour SLA turnaround time. You give them the file, and then you get QuickBooks Online data put in, you know, from the desktop file and things like that. So they'll walk you step by step through that process. We have the times that they are available Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So that would be the perfect time to call that number and say, hey, I'm interested in moving to QBO. What can you do for me? Or move my clients to QBO, right? What can you do for me? And then the other thing that we also just recently kind of like enhanced is the fact that we've allowed for more data to come from QuickBooks Desktop to QuickBooks Online. So one of the things that I hear all the time is QuickBooks Online is not a good fit for my client because their file is too big. And my comment to that is that's not necessarily true, because QuickBooks Online is on the cloud, right? It's pulling data as needed. And so there really is no file size limit. Now, yes, we have limitations for some versions of QBO, like you can only have 250 chart of accounts, et cetera, in some versions. But ultimately, data file size wise, right, there is really no limit. What happens is the actual tool that moves the data from desktop to online was only able to take so much data to the cloud. We've actually increased it from 350,000 targets to 750,000 targets. And I believe it's 2021 Pro, Premier, and Enterprise and above, if I'm not mistaken. I know that the articles that we linked on converting from desktop to online does have that data in there, so you can verify if I'm fibbing or not. But ultimately what we've
keeping
done
you
is,
honest.
keep me honest, guys. You can tell me you're a big fat liar, Leah. But basically, the tool that moves that data, we've enhanced it and allowed for more data from desktop to online. So if there's ever any question of like, well, this file is just too big, it's not about the file being too big. It's about the tool that moves that data into the online world.
Leah, can I just add on there too? A lot of our desktop clients have been using desktop for 10, 15, 20 years. There's no reason to convert all of that data to QuickBooks Online. I usually recommend just the current year or maybe last year and the current year.
Yeah.
And so condense that data file so that you don't have to convert all that old data. You still have that desktop file in the event you ever need it. So
Yep,
anyway,
exactly.
sorry.
No, I love it. Thank you so much for the commentary.
Thanks, Leah, for that insight from the Intuit side of things. So we're going to walk through a little bit of a demonstration of the process, which is super simple now. And I'm actually here, and hopefully I didn't get disconnected. But I'm using a Macintosh, and I'm in a cloud version of Windows in a cloud server, right? So normally you would say, no, don't do that, because especially if you're using Right Networks or some other cloud hosting provider, the company file location is not local, right? Because we talked about, best practice, the file should be local. Well, I've worked with this particular cloud host, and they've given me special access to actually have a local access point to that. And I'm in Enterprise, which typically when you're in QuickBooks, you would just go to the company menu as the admin, and you'd see this nice little option here that says QuickBooks, export to QuickBooks Online. Well, you don't get that in QuickBooks Enterprise. So there's a way to get to it though, and it's a keyboard shortcut. So you got to bring up the product information window, which is a good reason to start with, or a good way to start with, because you're going to be looking at those total target links and whatnot, and you'll be confirming that the location is local. This is not local. It is local, but you normally would start with a C or a D, and then in your file location, and then you'll be going into into the local, to ensure that it's a local drive. So a Q drive or something that's not C or D would not be something to work with. So you'll be able to see the target limit here, or the target size. You'll see, anything about the particular file itself here. But in Enterprise, you want to get to this screen, and that's the F2 key or Control 1. And then you do Control B and Q and then click OK. You know, like nothing happens when you click Control B and Q until you click OK. Then this screen comes up, which is the exact same thing that you would see by going to Company and export your company file to QuickBooks Online. And of course, we're having latency, right? So, so this first screen is going to come up with let's export your data to QuickBooks Online. You're ready to move now, or I want to try it first, right? So this would set up that trial that we're talking about. Now, if you're an accountant, don't do it here, right? Set it up in your QBOA first, because one, that's going to make you the primary admin and the accountant user, and we'll talk about why that is important in a bit. But you'll want to click on try it first if you're just doing this from your client's company and you're going to use the client's information, and then you're ready to go. So I've already set up the company file, so I'm going to say I'm ready to go. And then first it's going to ask if there's inventory used. Then you want to set up your inventory tracking. Now, QuickBooks Online handles inventory differently than desktop. By using FIFO as its cost calculation. What's the best practice, Leah, for what date to choose here when you're setting up your inventory tracking?
Ooh, that's a really good question. I don't actually know what the answer is to that one. I would
I
assume it's
stumped
the
you.
first of the year. I'm not a data migration expert.
Yeah, so start of the quarter or start of the year. So basically you want to kind of start the quarter clean as you kind of go into it.
Right, draw a line in the sand somewhere and make that happen. Now, if you've been filing differently, based on cost calculations, then you want to make sure that you talk to your accountant to make sure that these cost calculations will affect, they are going to affect your financials by changing the way you're recognizing the cost of your inventory. And then if you also have multi-currency, it will ask you the question there of what your home currency is, so it can set that up as well. Now, this is a bonkers, as Hector would say. This is a screen that drives me bonkers. Do you have a QuickBooks Online account? Right. So what it's asking for here is, do you have a login for QuickBooks Online? Do you not? And this is not, do you have a QuickBooks Online company to that login? So I would feedback. Would love this to say something about the login, not the QuickBooks Online account. But that's what it's asking for here is, do you already have a login that's associated with QuickBooks Online? So you just say, yes, sign me in. If you do. If you don't, then you would create a login. All right, so we're gonna.
I think the better way to explain it is like, do you have an Intuit ID that you can log into, like TurboTax, Mint.com? That's like QuickBooks Online. It's the same user ID and password.
Or a little thing that says, "What's this?"
Right. Exactly.
All right, and so it's just gonna ask you to sign in. And I tried this earlier today. It did take a little while to do that. So we're not going to wait for it to happen. We'll just pretend everything happened because it did. But you would choose create a new company if you're doing the trial, or choose a company that's already on your list. So if you're an accountant, do it in QBOA first, or go to QuickBooks.com and set up the 30-day trial there. Invite yourself as the accountant so that it brings it into your client portal. Because you do want to do this as the accountant user in that file, if you are the accountant or bookkeeper.
So Dan,
go ahead.
One word of caution here, because yes, it is a best practice to go ahead and create the company and set up that subscription in QBO other than through here. So it is a good idea to do that first. But when you're going through here as the accountant, you're going to see a lot of your clients listed out there. Be very, very careful.
Mm-hmm.
I had this one guy who had like Blue Summit Gas, Blue Summit Tire, Blue Summit whatever. Well, needless to say, he got click happy and clicked the wrong company, and you can reconvert from desktop to QBO, but when you do, it wipes out what's there.
Yeah.
So be very, very careful.
I did 4 conversions yesterday, and they all had the word Josie in it. So yes, you had to be very make sure that you just didn't overwrite the last data that you did, because that will happen, but it will ask you, before you do that.
As a suggestion, what you can do is when you create this company account, you know you're going to overwrite it. You're going to change the name anyway. So you can name it 1234 or migrate here. And then after you do the migration process, that'll overwrite the name anyway, and then you can have all the names updated.
That's a good idea.
All right, so I'm going to choose. To create a new company just for this purpose, so that we can actually see what happens from the QuickBooks desktop side, right? And it's then going to run through this process, go through, the status bars. You'll see them flickering by, and it's going to go through each process. So receiving your transactions, syncing your payroll data, and this is where it got hung up when I was doing this before. But it actually did go through. It just took a long time, and then the efforts of time, or the respect to time. I lost my chain of thought there. In order to pretend that things already happened, what's going to happen next is you're going to get a couple emails. I mean, that's it from here. This is all you need to do inside of QuickBooks Desktop. Once this bottom part goes, especially if you've done QuickBooks Online Advanced, it will prompt you to download the Desktop Online Advanced app. But at that point, you're done from the desktop. And then you just wait, right? It's you put all the ingredients in the cake pan, you put the cake in the oven. Now you're just baking. No peeking, right? You can't peek, and even if you try to peek, the door's locked, right? Like you can't even get into the company until the cake rises, right? And what's going to happen is you're going to get a series of 1 or 2 emails. If you're the accountant, you'll get 2 emails. If you're just a user, a company user inside of the company admin user inside of the company, at least you'll get the email that says, "Hey, the data is complete." So here we go. Okay, so this is the email that you'll receive once it's completed. It'll say, "Congratulations, your data is now available." Right, and there's lots of resources built in here of what to do, how to navigate, get started, complete your setup. So the resources are there. A lot of people just overlook them and just go right in and see what happened. But you want to be the accountant because you're going to get this email. And Blaze and I had a nice, healthy discussion to figure out what do you got to do in order to get this email? Because this email comes to accountants because accountants are concerned about it. But it has this nice little import summary report. And it's super helpful. I've got it open here, and it's an Excel spreadsheet that comes up, right? And it's got information about some information about what it is that you converted, whether they used online banking or payroll, multi-currency was used, partial billing, if they used inventory. So a lot of yeses in here. I don't know if you can see that. It's kind of tiny. But down here at the import summary, it counts up the number, it's listed by account. So it counts up the desktop number of accounts, and it counts the online number of accounts, and tells you what the difference is. And lo and behold, gives you an option to see why there's a discrepancy, right? So in this case, it takes me to the accounts tab here. Purchase orders, estimates, and sales orders is an account inside of QuickBooks Desktop. Doesn't import those. That doesn't affect your book. So estimates and purchase orders as an account don't come over. Okay, well that answers that question. I don't necessarily need to hunt through the entire data file to figure out which accounts wasn't, because they've provided it for me in this export summary right there. Vendors, right? There's 54 vendors in the desktop. 63 that came into QuickBooks Online. Why was that? Well, you got a little link there to see why, right? So there's a list inside of QuickBooks Desktop called the Other Names list, which is usually set aside for owners or names that aren't customers, vendors, or employees. So you're able to put another name list together. That doesn't exist in QuickBooks Online, so it turns them all to vendors. That's what it does here, and it tells you that in this import summary, right? And then so every line, every list element is going to have something in the import summary. You'll see the customers, the okay, there's 146 in the desktop file, and there's 146 in the online file. Well, great. I know all my customers came over. Employees, 3 came over. Yay. Okay. So, all right, now down here we have, okay, there's a discrepancy, right? It tells me my inventory asset came over, was $30,683.38 in desktop. Online, there's a slight discrepancy, which is $91.19. I'll bet you dollars to donuts, that's probably because of the FIFO and cost calculation why that discrepancy is. But now you at least have somewhere to look, right? And then you have your payables accounts of 29-cent discrepancy. So this gives you an idea of, well, where do I begin? And then there's also links in here at the bottom to what do I do after I complete the import process. So I think it's still importing again. I was going to go into, let's go back here. Where's the slides? Okay. So I'm going to throw this this other poll question up here of, do you have clients to migrate but need help? And while I am running that poll, we're going to talk a little bit about with Blaze about payroll. So I wanted to bring up the Rock Castle Construction Company here. If I go into the desktop file, I'm going to cancel out of this, so that the part to change, to check on is, if you didn't get that import summary, then you want to run some reports, and it'll give you the things to do, which is typically running a balance sheet and profit and loss on an accrual basis for all dates. And Leah or Blaze, why do you do it on an accrual basis for all dates? Who wants to answer that? No one.
I'll do it.
Michelle, go ahead.
The reason you want to do all dates is to ensure you're getting all transactions. Sometimes people can fat finger it, like Leah said, and you could put something in there for like 2025 or 2030, or you could have a transaction's got the wrong date. So you want to do all dates.
Right, and especially cash-based reports are going to look a little differently if something got unapplied during the process. Sometimes payments are applied creatively. I guess is the best way to put it inside the desktop. Sometimes journal entries are used as discounts, and again, in the translation of moving it from desktop to online, it may become unapplied. So running it on a cash basis, it's going to be different. So you want to run it on an accrual basis, as Michelle said, to make sure that everything at least came over. There may be some things that you need to do, post conversion to reapply some of those things to make sure that your cash and accrual reports are a little bit easier or closer. Okay, so I'm going to try. Whoops, hold on. We got some Zoom issues here. And we'll move this here so we can get our desktop and our online somewhat side by side.
Hey, Dan, I think folks are asking about the poll question. It never came up.
Oh, maybe I should hit the word launch.
Okay. I was just seeing a bunch of.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
There we go. Okay, so we've got people.
Thank you, Leah. I'm sorry. I'm trying to do VCon and this, so I missed that. Sorry about that.
All right, so here we have the Rock Castle Construction Company as it came in online, and here is the Rock Castle Construction Company that I came in desktop. So you can see by running these on all dates, on accrual, all dates, accrual, you can just, typically what I do is I go down to the bottom line and look there first, right? So there is a slight discrepancy between my liabilities and equity. So what we would then be doing is starting to look at, those things going back and forth. But we know that from the import summary that there is a discrepancy because some of those balance sheet accounts didn't come over exactly how they came. We can look at those accounts between the two, identify where the discrepancy occurred, either make an adjustment which you can do as the accountant now. You can actually do that in the accountant tools to make a lump sum adjustment through the month-end bookkeeping setup or cleanup tool, and then just move on from there if you decide to. What was I going to say here? Oh, wanted to see. So then let's talk a little bit about payroll. So Blaze. Oh, great. Something's not quite right. All right, let me try to go and refresh. Let me sign back in again. Probably log me out. So go to so Blaze. Let's talk a little bit about how we can tell if your payroll data came over.
Sure. So the quick and easy way to do that is as soon as migration happens, just go to the payroll and you're going to select to go to the payroll overview tab. So that's the current page view that you see, and you're going to click on that edit pencil icon on the your team's year payments are ready. So click on that pencil, go to the next page, and this is what you should see, something like this, where basically you see last paid has dates in it, and you can see if the person was paid in this year or not. So little catch about this thing. So right now, if you look at the very last person on the list, Terry terminated, was last paid in 2014. So that's what we considered an inactive employee. We are assuming you're not going to continue to pay Terry. If you had been paying Terry outside the system, you could click on that no button, and that will then toggle to a blue yes, and then you could complete the pay history information for Terry if you wanted to activate Terry. Right now, we're assuming not. Everyone else, you know you paid them this year. Now, catch two, when you migrate from QuickBooks Desktop to online, actually, Dan, stay on that page real quick.
Nope.
Thank you. Yep. All that QuickBooks Online needs to know is, did you pay this person this year? Because we need to make sure that the year end, we can do all the year end forms and filings correct. So at this point in time, for all these people that are paid this year, QuickBooks Online will consider these to be active employees. So if you paid someone in January, you terminated them in February, they will list here, you'll see their date, and you'll see that they're paid this year, because we do need you to complete the payroll setup so we get the year ends correct. But then afterwards, you need to go and deactivate those employees. Otherwise, you will continue to be paid for them, the monthly charge. Now, that's for if things went well. You see dates, you see read-only yeses, everything's good. Next page. If the payroll migration did not happen, there will be no dates listed, and you'll see a whole bunch of blue button yeses, which just means, hey, you have this employee there. If you don't want to set them up, if they're not active, if they were not paid this year, then you can tell them no. Otherwise, we do want you to complete the setup for them. Honestly, if I see this page, the number one thing that I want to do is go back and try the migration again. This most likely happens because there was a connectivity issue at the time of the migration. So whether network somewhere along the way, there was a little glitch and they did not fully come over. And because of that, we broke the payroll data. So go back, try it again, and most likely it will work the second time.
And as far as like the behind the scenes things, payroll is like the last thing that gets migrated. Is that what you're saying?
So what happens first is the accounting data comes over first, and then when we see that there are employees with transactions, a secondary process is kicked off to pull the current year payroll data. Again, it's just current year payroll data that comes over as payroll data. Your books are still the same. Your accounting data has all the journal entries from every payroll you ever run, but from the payroll section, it's only going to be the current year payroll data.
Gotcha. So the financial impact of the payroll did come over, but then it's that last step of actually putting in that into the payroll module itself. Right.
Correct. And for some folks, they have a lot of custom pay types. So in QuickBooks Desktop, you can do absolutely anything you want to. So I have seen plenty of custom pay types where employees were paid in produce. So all this and that, which QuickBooks Online may not necessarily really understand. So you're going to have this other item come up about syncing up your QuickBooks Desktop payroll items. So if you click on Start there, that'll take you to a page to say, hey, in Desktop, you had this thing that we don't know what it was. We can see how it was taxed, so we know that. And here's the name of it, but we don't know what it really should be according to QuickBooks Online. So I created this thing called XYZ allowance in my QuickBooks Desktop file. which on the right-hand side, I'll map it now to where it should be. So if you go to the next slide, you'll be able to see, you can click the pay type, click allowance. I can see how it's taxed there as well. And then once I get that kind of line to, yep, this is the right way, then you're going to click on save to actually save that data. Please note though, the taxes that were applied in desktop may not necessarily be what QuickBooks Online has it as. I've seen plenty of files where the customer had made a mistake when they set up the pay type in desktop, so it was not taxed correctly. But QuickBooks Online says, yep, hey, this is legally how it's supposed to be taxed. We'll take care of it. And it's okay if it doesn't match. We actually have another page that'll pop up to let you know, like, hey, here's a difference, here's the impact, here's what you need to do next for that. So it's okay if it's not right. Sorry, if case doesn't match, but you do want to make sure you select the correct pay type so that is taxed correctly. Once you're done that, you click on save. And in the background, we're actually going to reprocess your entire payroll data based upon now we know how things are mapped over, which therefore then allows us to bring over all that pay history information for any of those employees that had those pay types, because now we know what they are, we know what they're meant to be.
That's something that's new, because when I was there, they did not have that in the in the payroll migration. So this is a nice feature functionality, because of the desktop payroll is some people can be creative or be explicit in what they're doing inside of the payroll module. So this puts it on par.
Correct. So yeah, I actually made that page, and somebody has taken it over, so it's going to look a whole lot nicer. I only had basic skills, so I was making that one, but it's going to be improving. So look and feel of it may change a bit, but the functionality, how it actually works, is going to be the same.
So we did talk about the import summary report. It is something that you want to make sure that you're the accountant in order to accountant user in order to get it, and you need to be the accountant, the lead accountant. So not just an invited team member doing the conversion. I actually had an issue where somebody else was getting the import summary report, and I was doing the conversion. We found out that they got it and they forwarded it to me so I could review that. So they're here in the slides to kind of review, but gives you an idea of that. I know we're a little bit over our time here for the hour. We do have some resources. There's how summarizing, how the data converts, the article, the desktop migration article. You guys have created a nice little tutorial video of walking people through the process. There's articles about what to do post conversion, and then there's a payroll webinar that you guys have created to be able to what to do after, how to do those audits to make sure that the payroll information is set up correctly. I've created a QuickBooks conversion data guide. You can create go to the link there and just kind of walk through. It's kind of a choose your own adventure. If you're going from desktop to online or online to desktop or Sage 50 to QuickBooks Online, you can kind of work your way through the questions that you might need to ask either yourself or the client to make sure that you're what's going to happen and you have those expectations. All right, so I'll have the last poll after this webinar. How do you feel about desktop migration? This is a multi-select, so you can choose multiple answers. Information was helpful. I already do my own. You can insert your Charlton Heston voice here. I'll give up my desktop when you pry it from my cold, dead hands. But Blaze, it looks like folks have dropped off already. Blaze, thank you for joining us here today. It was really helpful to get the Intuit insight as far as changes that have happened in the migration process, and we really appreciate your participation in the Facebook group when some things go awry when that happens. So we really appreciate you joining us here today.
My pleasure. And actually, Janice is actually asking a quick question about when you should actually get the payroll service. And again, this goes back to ideally make sure that when you select which QuickBooks Online product you want, that you also select which payroll service you want as well. And if you do select Elite, then we can actually do the payroll setup and take care of all that for you as well. So the options are there for you. If you do not select a payroll service, but you do have payroll data on employees with transactions in your QuickBooks desktop file, then we will automatically give you a free trial version of payroll so that that data has someplace to go. And you can just turn it off if you don't want it in your account settings, subscriptions, and billing area.
Awesome. Well, we are running a little over, so if you do want to continue to have questions or comments, put them in the Facebook group or on our YouTube channel, and we'll forward those over if we need to the folks at Intuit to really answer those questions. Again, thank you for joining us for our QB Power Hour. Hopefully, see you next time in a couple weeks, where we take a deep dive into Ignition on the next QB Power Hour. Michelle, always great to see you.
Good to see you.
All
Thanks.
have a great day.
Thanks, Blaze. Thanks, Dan. Thanks, everybody in the background helping too. Thank you all.